Perhaps many have a friend who desperately advises to pass his favorite series of games, because without it, in his opinion, you are not a gamer, and in the normal game did not play. Today, I will act as such a friend, because if you consider yourself a true gamer, you simply must pass the game from this top. A series of subway games. A series of extremely interesting and atmospheric first-person shooters, which takes place on the territory of Russia in the underground of the Moscow metro. With cities, stations, warring factions, monsters on the surface invaded by mutants. Anyone who missed it, highly recommend a walkthrough. I was very moved by the game. At the moment, the series has 3 story-related games, and also confirmed development, a sequel to Artem's story under the working title Metro 2036. The Witcher game series. Another great series of games about the legendary White Wolf. The story told by Sapkowski and the world he created was perfect for a dystopian RPG. The world turned out to be atmospheric, and each character in the narrative, even from the secondary cast, is a full-fledged personality with its own story. A plot with intriguing twists and turns. And fulfilling the various witches' orders is really interesting. So far the series has 3 story-related games. But the developers have already managed to hint that they are not going to put an end to the Witcher's universe. What will be next is still a mystery. Mass Effect series of games. One of the best story-driven space operas about Captain Shepard's war against the Reaper invasion. The games in the series were in many ways unique to the gaming industry at the time, proving that Western RPGs can be thrillingly thoughtful without forcing you to read miles of dialogue text. The whole emphasis was on spectacle, pathos, and cinematography. Every cutscene, every conversation, and every event was designed as if the player was watching an expensive space action movie instead of playing it. Despite the failure of Andromeda, the developers declared that they will not abandon the universe of Mass Effect. And just recently confirmed the information about the release of the remaster of the first 3 parts. S.T.A.L.K.E.R series of games. A unique phenomenon for the domestic game industry. About S.T.A.L.K.E.R said everything you can, and there are probably people who have not heard of it, at least faintly. Such popularity is the game earned, primarily because of the unique atmosphere combining an apocalyptic setting with Eastern Slavic coloring, and a living open world. Explore it with pleasure. Grim music, rainy autumn, abandoned villages, and Soviet factories, creepy mutants, campfire gatherings with guitar and jokes. We are waiting for more specific information about S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2, and hope that all this was not just idle talk. GTA game series. The shooter about the great car thief has grown into an incredibly long series with numbered and non-numbered games, becoming one of the best-selling series in the history of the gaming industry. Cities that are firmly rooted in our memory and the streets that we still remember by heart. In the 5th game for the first time introduced 3 main characters, which of course diversified the overall storyline. The quality of graphics to this day inspires respect. And thanks to the active online mode, the GTA 5 server is still packed with players. We are waiting for the official announcement of the 6th part. The Elder Scrolls series of games. One of the major game series, which has made a huge contribution to the development of games with an open world. From the earliest parts, in the distant 90s, the developers have tried to create a vast territory with interactivity, and they succeeded, despite the limited technical possibilities of those years. And now the modern computer techniques gave such beautiful games as Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim, that became the most popular game of the series. Far Cry series of games. A series of dynamic first-person shooters, where we are sent to various exotic places with beautiful wildlife. The games are almost unconnected, but nevertheless the series has a pretty big history. There are 13 games in it. And Far Cry 3, it's not just a great game, it's the best open-world shooter I've played in the last 5 years. Assassin's Creed series is about assassins who bring justice. The game is sure to please fans of adventures. The first part was supposed to be just a spin-off for Prince of Persia, but in development it grew into a standalone game, thus giving life to an entire game series that is not going to retire yet. Personally, I liked the story of Altair from the first part of Black Flag and Assassin's Creed Origins the most. And so a prime example of how a popular series has been turned into a conveyor belt. Hopefully Assassin's Creed Valhalla coming out in late 2020 didn't lead the series into a final dead end. Gothic series. Young gamers, who haven't seen the heyday of Gothic, may not understand why those who are older when remembering it, a nostalgic smile is replaced by a sad sigh. Despite the fact that the developers themselves hammered the last nail in the coffin of their brainchild with the release of Arcania. The first game of the series is sure to remain on the list of the best action RPG for a long time to come. The playable teaser of the modern remake of the first Gothic, which appeared on Steam in late 2019, looks good. You can see that the developers decided not just to stupidly copy the first part of Gothic, and brought something new from themselves, taking as a basis the long-forgotten old. We are waiting for the full-fledged release. Dark Souls game series. Some people hate them, others love them, some people can't even defeat the first boss, others set speedrun records and pass the hardest bosses at once. If earlier games showed us a lot of interesting trailers, and the passage seemed simple and predictable, but in the universe of Dark Souls everything is completely different. This series of games is not intended for everyone, because many people will simply not be able to handle it, but the strangeness and complexity of the game is admirable. Maybe not everyone will reach the end, but everyone should try. By the way, the developers have already hinted at the continuation and that it will be a grand project RPG genre has been released in recent years. A series of games. Doom. The Doom games series is one of the most insane and incredibly dynamic local skirmishes. Doom is the very first shooter of its kind, which was used three-dimensional graphics and multiplayer mode. The plot, though uncomplicated, but also available. You're in the role of a nameless hero and shoot a bunch of demons that have begun a massive takeover of the station on Mars, or directly on Earth. And the recent relaunch of the Doom series has added even more dynamism and hardcore, and shines with numerous references to the classics. Crysis game series. The first installment of the Crysis series came out in 2007, but is still a household name. This big-budget action game in its time brought top PCs to their knees. Even now a lot of games are far away from Crysis's abilities. For example, in terms of destructibility of the environment. The sequels that followed were good quality, but still they did not become as iconic as the original game from 2007. And for the gamers who have not had time to get acquainted with the shooter, Crytek has prepared a remaster that came out in the summer of 2020 on PC and consoles. Half-Life series. We have all heard about the game series Half-Life, because there is a good reason for that. Released in the 90s, the game was a wild delight. Great gameplay was combined with dashingly twisted storyline. After that, as a strong shot, and the second part has preserved the best of the first. But of course with a better quality picture. Besides, despite all the futuristic weapons and technology in the game, the developers have made sure that it all looked scientifically sound and plausible. And the recently released Half-Life Alyx for VR devices reinforces the hope that Half-Life 3 will still come out. Fallout series of games. Fallout is one of the most intriguing games. Released in 1997. It immediately brought with it a new milestone in the creation of games. The series' action takes place in an alternate world, where technology has gone the way of vacuum tubes and nuclear physics. Bumpy TVs hear neighbors with robots and laser weapons, cars drive on atomic traction, and soldiers use exoskeletons called power armor. The story follows the events after a nuclear war. A dank, gray, and cold world inhabited by mutants, human cyborgs, and robots. Absolute freedom and unlimited possibilities made the series a benchmark. Well, with the exception of a couple of parts. As for the future of the franchise, about it yet knows only Bethesda will continue to develop online components, or Fallout will return to its single-player roots. Time will tell. Diablo series. Action-adventure slasher, where the player is mainly engaged in sweeping different locations, battles with bosses, and finding the best equipment. Diablo is without a doubt one of the leaders in the field of RPG games, which combines a good story, a variety of monsters, a wide range of main characters with individual skills and abilities. This trend has been especially evident since Part 2. Now the gaming public is waiting for the fourth part. What it will be and how it will be received by the players is unclear. Heroes of Sword and Magic game series. This is one of those game series, which drags on for weeks, if not months of rampant gameplay. Despite the fact that the series has the perfect parts, equated to the classics of game industry, and completely failed. The characters remain beloved by millions, and I always look forward to a new installment with hope and anticipation. Although the series is unfortunately not having the best of times. Prince of Persia series. An interesting and very unusual series of games, from which subsequently grew the Assassin's Creed series. The gameplay includes great acrobatics and intense real-time battles, using time manipulation. The series has 8 games. The last one, titled The Forgotten Sands, was released back in 2010, but personally I recommend a must-play Dahaka story, Prince of Persia Warrior Within and Prince of Persia 2008 with a brand new story. As for the sequel, rumors of its development have been around for a long time, but Ubisoft hasn't confirmed them. Fable series. This is a series of games that every self-respecting gamer should play. Fabulous adventure whose feature is the great attention to detail. In addition to location exploration, treasure hunting, and pumping the hero, the player has to pay time to your character. For example, if you eat too much, it will lead to gluttony. Excessive drinking causes nausea, and from the battles appear scars. The player can also build relationships with NPCs, and even have a wedding. And in my favorite Fable, The Lost Chapters, we start out playing as a child, and over time our hero grows up and begins to age. It's fun to watch a skinny kid turn into a gray-haired, pumped-up old man. Darksiders series. Absorbed a lot of positive elements from other previously released slashers, and also completely plunged us into the mysterious biblical world, the confrontation of hell and heaven, giving us the opportunity to play as the very riders of the apocalypse. And the gameplay includes exploring locations, finding secrets, solving puzzles, and battling numerous enemies and bosses. On our way we will meet demons from hell, angels from heaven, and the ancients that don't belong to any side. If you have weak PC, you should definitely pay attention to the first 2 parts. BioShock series. Pretty famous series of first-person shooters with RPG elements. The first 2 parts take you to the underwater town of Delight, where were conducted experiments on people, and studied the superpowered elements, which turned people into bloodthirsty monsters. But the threequel will send you to an airy megapolis in Columbus. All the games in the series hold the bar for quality, and the third one, according to critics and gamers, is the best. By the way, there are remasters for the first 2 parts of the series in 2016, and at the end of last year BioShock 4 was officially announced. The game will definitely appear on PC, but the date has not been determined yet. That's such a top 20. If you like this theme, then make a continuation, and for you is Broadcasting Channel Gaming Vibe. Bye, everyone.